advised me to build a compiler from scratch, and that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm not. I think I'm not gonna go all the way. I'm just gonna try to do the very beginning of it to learn more on how to program in C, and then I'm probably gonna study Python and then try to merge the two. So like try to start from the beginning and then go back to studying C Python and then trying to see like trying to integrate the way that I think and see the kind of stuff that maybe I got wrong or my intuition is off, something like that. So I also like there's several different ways to do this, so I'm probably not gonna do it. I'm not gonna try to do it the way that they do it on C Python, which is with the parser generator. So they create a parse tree based on the rules that they write on the file. And there's two different types of generators that they use. One is for the types of nodes, the parser nodes, and the other one is to generate the functions that create a parser. So I'm not gonna do that way, I think. I'm just gonna try to focus on the smallest part. Today, probably all that I'm gonna be able to do is just set up the beginning here. I was also advised to figure out how to uh, put the settings or create the settings for the debug on VS Code. So apparently, when you can run the file directly with VS Code, and it allows you to put the breakpoints and to step with the IDE, which is much better than just using GDB. So I'm gonna try to set that up, but it might be very annoying. Let me put some music. So what I'm gonna do is just try to I'm gonna copy the files that I already have here from the other project. I'm gonna use these helper functions here as well that he uses on the other C compiler. The biggest thing is that I'm not really sure like how to do it. That's the thing. Like because the hardest part about beginning from the absolute zero is that it doesn't make a lot of sense in my mind to because when I think about the file, I already think about all the other possible rules you can have. So, like parsing only a keyword for example, like int or float or something like that, doesn't make a lot. Like I can do that quite easily. Just open the file and then just check with an if statement. Obviously, you just skip through characters and then you check. But then the challenging thing is like how do you put everything together? That's the problem. So, but yeah, I think it is a good idea to try to start from the beginning because it is gonna force me to think more and I'm gonna learn about the pointers, like how to go about using pointers and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna do is use CMake, probably. This is another thing I have to... I'm gonna figure this out now. It's been a long time since I haven't done anything like this, but yeah, so here I think I have to delete all these files because these files from the other project. I think this is just setting an environment variable, so first you put the name of the variable and then you put the what's gonna be replaced with the name, and then the other commands use this here. It's very similar to JavaScript where you use the $sign and the curly braces to replace variable names. Here is gonna be the project name, which I think is gonna be this one. So it's just creating an executable by running main C and all the other files here. Then I remember I was using another library, so I'm gonna have to... I'm not gonna have to, but I want to create the build folder to put all the resulting files. This is one of the annoying things about C, so you have to manage all the header files and then think about all the object files that are gonna be created. So, and I was building a Chrome extension before this, but I put a pause on that. I'm not really sure if I'm gonna go back, but I figured out that in order to highlight things, you can use a library called Houdini. It allows you to use the canvas to highlight the words. And I think it's a little bit tricky, and I was having a problem with that. I was making too many API requests because of the way that I was messaging when I was changing the speed, and I couldn't figure out or think about a way to do that, except using debounce to reduce the API calls, but that didn't feel right to me. So Like I don't understand how they set the speed on all browsers on all tabs at the same time, but how do they do that? Because if you do that, you have to use the storage, so or the Chrome messaging thing, and then you're gonna have to make API requests. So it's kind of stuck on that, and I think it's better to just spend some time now on the compiler, and maybe I'll go back to the Chrome extension, the compiler stuff. So let me think. Yeah, let me remove all of this stuff. So obviously the first file is gonna be main C. And then I have to think about as well how I'm gonna structure the header files. This is one of the biggest things when I was trying to change the other one that is very confusing to me because of you can have circular imports. Then to avoid that, I think you just write pragma once or you just define the name on the header file, but it's still kind of confusing. There's also this thing here that they shared with me that I'm probably gonna follow now as well. I think it's just a set of tutorials that teach you how to do it. So the directories. Yeah, I was gonna use this JSON file as well that I stopped. I had to study this stuff. And I remember this was a pain in the ass as well to figure out how to set up. And then I ended up just using a static version of the file, which is just one file. It's probably here. Build JSON build and include. No, this is the header files. I think it's this one, yeah. So I made it work just by, there's a difference between this .a file and other types of, like if you want to import on the standard way, I think that there's different kinds of libraries that they say, but I forgot the differences. But this one is the one that it was working before to compile this stuff. So, and I think I have to, I don't remember if I was creating other folders. Yeah, but I don't remember if this is necessary. I think it's just because of the other projects. So he created this folder just to create this keep file for the GitHub, or yeah, the Git versioning thing. Also, the thing that I learned on VS Code is that the way that you set up the debug there is you have to create this launch.json on this .vscode folder. But I don't want to create right now because like this was created automatically on this one, I think. So I want to see on the other one if it's going to create this or not. But I haven't figured out how to structure the configuration here so it works. So it's kind of annoying because on Windows you have to use, I use Chocolatey, however you say that, which is a package manager, to download the C compiler, and then it puts on a library, but then I think the setup is kind of different. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to figure this out now. So, let me think. I'm gonna try not to, or to just get the least amount of things as possible from the other one. So I think I don't need to put all the other folders. If you run the cmake commands, this is the thing that I'm not really sure as well. If I need to have the text file, because I don't remember how I did this in the beginning. I think I have to run first from the parent, and then it generates the build. And then after that, there's different types of compilers as well. There's this G++ and GCC, I think. Two different things. I'm trying to remember. I guess it's just going through the documentation is easier. Or trying to run the command. So if I should run the cmake here on this directory, and then it's gonna create. But I do remember that I have to run from the builds. So after you create the first thing, you go to the build directory, then you specify the parent directory as the source one, and then the current directory where you want to build this stuff. So let's see. Also put this compiler file. I think I'm not gonna copy the structs as well. The one thing that I'm contemplating is whether or not I should use this library. Because this is the thing that I don't know. That it's just challenging because like it feels to me that there might be a way to do this like in a better way, but maybe not. Or maybe maybe not actually. Because the guy that did the course already knew, like he has a lot of experience, so probably this. Because if you use the normal arrays, I think, or vectors in C, you have to do this stuff manually anyway, which is to allocate memory and to put the limits, increase the limits as the array increases, or the vector. So probably I should. The thing that I didn't like, I think, is the functions, like the way that the functions work. But I think it's just because of is C. So obviously you don't have classes. So I think it makes sense that you push by putting the stuff on the function. The thing that I think I dislike a little bit about this is that like the way that it works are to push something into the vector is to create this vector vector underscore push, and then you put the name of the vector and then you put the thing to push, so element. And obviously the other way if you had classes would be just to call like the method and then push. And the thing I don't like about this that much is that I think it's not very clear. Like it's not as easy to see what's the vector and what's the element when you're reading the code this way. But obviously I think it has to be this way because it's on C. So, no. And I think this stuff about reading the file and the other kinds of things, I'm just gonna copy from the other one because not that interesting. And then I have to think about whether or not, because this is the thing, like, it's always easier to copy everything, obviously. So, like, the hard part is figuring out, like, how should I, because I'd wanna adopt the style that he did it. I wanna see like how I would think about doing it if I didn't have the code. But at the same time, I don't want to figure out the stuff that is kind of just annoying, like open the file. It's probably Zeph open, but then getting the standard arguments. Like I think I can obviously look that up, but yeah. So let me think. I'm gonna try to figure out the CMake stuff first, then I figure out I'm gonna read this stuff with the text to speech probably, and then try to figure out how to set up the, because on my stuff it wasn't working, so I have to manually figure out the configurations so that I can compile with the ID, or I can debug with the ID. I think the easiest thing that I can do is just run CMake here first. So it's gonna main compile. Oh no, is this the CMake version? The version of the project. This is one of the things that is confusing as well. But I think that private and public just regulate the scope of the header files. But the difficult thing is knowing when to use each one, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. Yeah, let's see if I run CMake here, what's gonna happen. This is the thing. Because on the other one I'm running. Maybe if I just run with the current one and then build. Blah blah blah. This is the problem, is that it builds everything here. So I'm gonna delete all this stuff and then try to do it again from the build. Yeah, and I remember that I had to go into the other directory and then run. But I wasn't sure here if I needed to do that, or let's see if I can do that, because problem is that the CMake list file is obviously on the root directory, so I'm not really sure if it's gonna work if I type CMake from here. And the way that I ran on the other one was like this. First the path to the source, then where you want it to build. Yeah, okay, so it does work. I thought maybe it doesn't work because of the place of the CMake list. But I don't understand why it's not creating the make file. Let me run again and see if it's gonna change. And then if it doesn't, I'm just gonna try to run the... It's probably because there isn't any code here, but... One thing that I have to think about is like how to structure the files. I always struggle with that. So maybe I'll just create a include directory and then put everything on this directory. Let's see how it does it on this one. I think I can put the relative path here and just put every header file on the include. Except the other ones that are different. I think for the graph I'm just gonna copy the... Yeah, so the idea as well is to create the graph already. Like as I create the compiler, I'm gonna try to create the graph data structure to extract information. Maybe I should put everything on the include. No. And this is the issue, so I'm gonna have to remove some stuff. Maybe it's better. I'm gonna leave these files here like this, but I'm gonna do the compiler part first. Then I'll think about that. Oh, this is another thing that I was thinking, that I'm probably... I think that on the other one I moved the test files to the build folder because the executable is built on that, which is another question that I had, I just remember now. That I think that, yeah, I'm pretty sure that I tested, and if I move the executable from this file to another place, it stops working. So maybe I should ask ChatGPT how do I get the relative path, or how do I get the absolute path from a file? I think I'm gonna do that. But if it's too annoying, I'm just gonna create a new folder here and just put tasks. And this is gonna be the file that has the code that I'm gonna parse. Oh, it's probably, yeah, it shouldn't be. Oh, maybe this is another thing. I'm gonna have to look that up. Not really sure if I, probably, yeah, I think I can open any file. So I'm gonna remove this compile flags. I don't know really well how do they work. This code is from my Udemy course where he teaches compilers. I'm just gonna remove it. So I'm gonna remove this. So I think the first thing that I have to think about is the structs. And obviously, I'm gonna try not to copy, to just force myself to do from the beginning. Just the annoying parts that I'm gonna do. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't copy anything, just try to do everything from scratch. Just search things that I don't know how to do. So the first thing that I have to figure out is how to open the file. So yeah, let me think about the structs and where should I put the header files. Header is gonna be here, but yeah, so, I think for the main ones, I'm just gonna put them here. And I was thinking about, like, one thing that I didn't like about the project from him is that he puts everything on the compiler age, and I think it's reasonable to do that because it's probably easier, and because it's already really hard to create a compiler, and he spends probably a bunch of time creating the course. So I think it makes sense that he tries to simplify as much as possible, but the obvious downside of that is that it becomes a massive file, and then you don't know where each thing is. So I think it's probably better to try to create a H file for each C file that I create. But then the issue is like how to make it work with the includes and things like that. Because I remember I had a problem was, I don't remember exactly which problem it was, but I think it was with the definition of the header files when I was trying to create this stuff here. Yeah, like put a relative path here, and then like for some reason I think that's I think it was because of the token. So I was trying to use this struct token here, and then I have to define the compiler age file here. But then on the compiler age, I have to define the things. So like it creates kind of like one of the circular imports thing. And I wasn't really sure what is the best way to go about this. Because it kind of it forces you in a position where you have to put everything into one file. It seemed like to me. So I'm not sure if I was doing something wrong or yeah. So let me think about this first. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do the same names that he did because I think they make sense. Struct compile process. And what do I need here? So I think that on this one, I'm obviously gonna have this true. Maybe. And then I'm gonna have the input file. So I forgot what data he used for the files. Let me see if I have a question about this. I think one thing that I didn't like, but maybe it makes sense that he does, is that he creates a file object on both on all the structs, I think. So the compile process has the input file and the lecture process also has. But I think that it makes confusing, obviously. So, but I think that's maybe he did this way because of memory. Because if I just have one, then when I read, it's gonna move the pointer of the file, and then I'm gonna have to create functions to figure out how to go back to the beginning. But then if I want to use on the other one, it might get like really bad, really annoying. So I think I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT. I'm thinking about creating like just one variable to be the input file and the another variable should be, but I'm not really sure what kind of, like maybe it should be char or a pointer. There's also something like this that I remember searching for, and it says that like putting this symbol here, like the pointer symbol, allows you to put an arbitrary number of characters. But obviously I don't understand that very well. So this is another thing about, that is more challenging in C, is that obviously you have to, I think that when you when you create a string, it allocates a string is just an array, and it allocates the size of the array into the memory, but it's not dynamic. So if you want to make changes to the string, I think you have to manually do it, or it depends on what kind of the way you create the string. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. Most of the questions that I have now are based on type. I'm thinking about here that should probably, I don't know how to declare, but should be a union, I think. It's probably similar to the way that he does it. Or maybe it should be the other way around, like this. Because each token is gonna have its own type. So I'm just gonna, maybe it's both. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT how to do this. So maybe I should write pseudocode first with the stuff that I think I'm gonna need. So I think file name, then input file, or input file name, then the thing is, I'm not really sure if I need the name of the file, or if I just need the object. It probably makes more sense to just have the object. So I'm gonna do just the object, and then if I have to, I put the file. So for now, I think that's all I can think of. So this is probably gonna have to be a struct, because I remember I need to have the position. So I'm just gonna create. It does pause, but I think position. I'm gonna try to be as descriptive as possible on the names, so that it's easier for me to understand. So maybe position is fine, and then I think is int call, int row, and there was something else as well. that I forgot. For this one, I think I'm gonna look it up. Just the file name. So it's line instead of a call. Oh, do I need to put the file name? I think I'm not gonna put it, and then if I need it eventually. For the macros, I think I'm just gonna copy as well because it's just annoying to. And this is one of the annoying things that, like building from scratch, is one of the problems that you have to think about all the possible symbols and situations you can have. There's operator precedence as well, but that's for the parser part. And that's like, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna do the Lexer up to the Lexer because when it gets to the point, like the whole problem is that like the way that you're gonna parse, like, the way that you're gonna build meaning out of the tokens, I think it really depends on what, like that's where you're gonna have the most variance on the types of compilers you do, and that's where it gets really complicated, I think. Because the algorithms you create are gonna depend, and then I think it gets massive. So I think that's the point where I should probably go back to CPython and then try to continue to understand how they do it. But then the problem is I'm gonna have to understand the generators. So like to do it without the generators, I have to understand the intermediate, the Back-Knowles form, however you say that, which is the language that describes the grammar. How to translate that to a parse tree that becomes an abstract syntax tree. I think that's probably more efficient than trying to write the stuff, and it makes more sense. But then it gets to the question. Obviously, because I'm doing Python, I think I have to. Maybe I don't have to. Yeah, I think I don't have to, but since CPython uses the... I forgot the name of the thing. It's the one that only allows the left symbol to be the one that is chosen, and then if it doesn't work, it just gets the first one. I think it's PEG, the name, Parser Expression Grammar. So since Python uses that, I think I should probably try to do that. But obviously I have no idea how to create the algorithms based on the tokens. And I also don't understand very well still. I learned how CPython creates the file object, which is very simple. But I still don't understand at what point it uses the file object to create the tokens. And so I think this is the project. Oh, there is... Maybe I didn't... Or it's on the compiler. I need to see a Python parser generator, this project here. But first, let me try to set up everything. Yeah, I have to study this stuff here, but it's written in Python. I think I'm gonna be right back, and when I come back, I'm going to... let me close this other stuff because otherwise I'm gonna... But that's what I'm gonna study right after. But when I come back, I think actually before I do this stuff, I'm gonna try to figure out how to set up the debugger with the launch thing, and then I will try to finish this stuff. I also have to see. I'm gonna ask GPT how to create the union, and I'm gonna put... So, like all of these are gonna have their own position, but I think I can just reuse the same because it's obviously gonna be like different things. It's just the declaration of what the thing is. But this is the reason why maybe he creates several different. He should just put position. Like he creates several different instances of the file object on each one because he wants the way he was traversing. He wants to have different positions for each one. I'm gonna try to do it with only one though, because I think it makes it easier to understand. So only this one, and then I can think about a way to move the pointer to the beginning again. Yeah, so the plan that I have is just to create this structs in the beginning and then create the functions here that are gonna initialize the structs. So the biggest challenge that I have for now is how to make sense of the pointers, when to use pointers and when not to use them, and how to make sense of how. I think the biggest thing is understanding how the vector is going to change based on the execution of the program, and how to deal with the pointers and the destructuring of pointers, or dereferencing of pointers. That's the most challenging. So maybe before I get to the point where I create the initial structures, then I create from the initial structures. Oh, I have to create this struct token as well. I just realized that because of the graph. So yeah, I was putting the stuff on the wrong place. It's confusing the things. So the next process is gonna have the tokens. It's gonna have a vector. Let me think. I have to see the type here. I struct vector. So this is gonna have the vector of tokens. And then I think that's the type is no, it is vector. I'm thinking about this one is gonna be token. Let me. I think it's not. It's like this. This is the thing that I don't get it really well. But it's kind of hard to think about questions on how to clarify this because, like, why does initialize with a pointer here? I think the reason why is because probably when you initialize, you call malloc or kloc, which allocates a memory on C. And then what you're doing when you're initializing is just create a pointer to the place in memory. Maybe that's the reason, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's kind of confusing to like really understand like why and when to use each thing. Yeah, but I think the first thing that I'm gonna do after I figure out how to create each thing on the beginning, which I'm probably gonna use this. He uses actually other files, so yeah, maybe this is the thing. This is the reason why. So I think on the compiler, he puts the functions for creating the tokens and the parser. And then he uses the other files to create the structs. So maybe you should do the same. So if I do that, because of the stuff that I was saying in the beginning, I should probably not put this on this file. I should put on their respective files. So I think that's what I'm gonna try to do it and see. Probably what is gonna happen is I'm gonna get into an error and then I'm gonna have to think about. And maybe I'll converge or I will move to do things the way that he is doing. Hey man, what's up? Yeah, so I think that's. I'm gonna create other header files. I'm gonna try to initialize everything here at the beginning. Once I initialize everything, then I think I'll go directly on the graph to try to get these ones because I wanna try to build it in a way that I'm already building the graph. Like thinking about this, how I'm gonna build the structure of the graph as I price the code, so that it's easier to create everything. So I'll be right back. I just realized that I'm gonna have to create buffers as well for the thing, which is quite annoying to be honest. I think that like those are the biggest differences I think, and also the print statements. So those are the hardest parts to get used to. So it's allocating memory, then the pointers and references, and using buffers and stuff like that to deal with strings is very a lot more challenging. So, and also the header files. So I'm gonna create another file here, and I'm gonna put some here. I guess this is the question that I had. Because, oh, there's also another thing that I forgot that I have to do, which is to put the if-def thing. I think you can either put if-def then the name, or you can put pragma once. But since the way he does it is by putting this stuff here, I'm gonna do it like this. And what this does is just it makes it so that you can only import the file once, and this prevents you to, for example, if I import this compiler on this file and then I import this one on the other one, but the other one also imports the compiler H, it's just gonna import once. I think that's the point of having these if statements here. So I think what I have to do is to include. I think include. Oh, the other very challenging thing, I'm just gonna do it for Windows because I'm using Windows. But this is another annoying thing is I have to put these definitions here. Because depending on which architecture you're using, you're gonna have different libraries. So as far as I understand, C doesn't have like a standard, like in the same way that JavaScript has npm yarn and pnpm and Python has pip. C doesn't have one that is standard and has several different options. But usually I think people just use the libraries that come with the language, that are the standard libraries, so you don't have to download them. And if you want to use external libraries, then you have to download them, and then it's kind of a pain in the ass because you have to figure out how to include them on here on the CMake thing. So I was looking here. And this is just the max. I had to do this because of the maximum size that he uses there some point for the path. In Linux is different than Windows. And also for this function here, real path, which I assume he gets the real path for the thing. Obviously, as the name says. So I hope I can do this. Import the other one. Let's see if it works. Okay. And then I should put if-def here as well. Maybe I should just put pragma once because it's easier. Obtain the absolute path of a file using platform-specific functions. Here's all. So it's a char. So I guess I just put char. But it's not gonna be. I'll think about it later. 'Cause I think I'm not gonna save the. Maybe I should put both. Or just the file name is gonna be char. Let's use this pointer. I'll probably fire the file. I'm gonna file name. I'm gonna read on the other project. I use this in a const. I don't understand why. Maybe it's because it is a string, so it's like the stuff that I was saying. That in C, strings are different. So it makes more sense to create a pointer because you're pointing to the place in memory that the string is gonna be allocated instead of the string itself. And I think maybe using the pointer allows you to have it. It wouldn't make sense for the thing to be dynamically allocated because it's using const, so not really sure. So I think I can just leave it like this and then I just import the compiler or sure. I think I can do like this. Let's see if it uses the. Oh. Just checking to see if it uses this symbol up there or not. And then I can use the. Yeah, I think I have to import this header file here and on the other functions. Because I was thinking about whether or not I'm going to create a file here, the file object, and then pass the file object as. This is another thing I think that maybe I got bad patterns because of Python. Because the way that the place you create the variables matter because of the memory management. So I think this is another fundamental principle of programming that probably all the languages have. And I think that is one of those things that it's always going to be dependent on the circumstance, which is like the scope. So I think that programming is mainly loops, branches, and scopes. And what changes one software to another is just the combination of this and the way that it's going to shape memory. And at the bottom line, it's going to be the same thing because instructions are memory. So, which is another thing that I was thinking about, and it's kind of confusing because I'm not 100% sure if I was thinking about the right way when I was studying grammar. That's like all that a grammar is a non-finite or deterministic finite automata or non-deterministic finite automata, which is kind of like a graph that represents the states of strings interpolations. So you begin with a string and then based on that string pattern, based on the rules of the grammar, you are going to transform that into a data structure. And that data structure is going to represent the sequences of instructions at the lower level. And then the lowest level is assembly, which is just a standard created. To simplify the data that is done on the hardware into symbols. So it's just like the first jump is the instruction set architecture that creates the symbolic representation, which is just a standard that people agree with, that creates the code. But like this standard is different than the standard for UTF-8, which is the standard that people create to represent symbols like of strings. So that's another difference. But I think that's so the question is, can like are instructions on a file the same as a data structure? Like you're just creating a complex data structure, which is going to be the way that you use grammars to shape the memory structure. Like you're creating a graph based on the rules, based on the string. So, and at the lowest level is going to be just like agreement of what the symbols mean. And then the symbols are going to shape what happens on the hardware. And then based on what happens on the hardware, is going to change the information you see on the screen. So I think it makes sense to be the same thing. But it's kind of difficult to think about, like, what do we mean when we say something is a data structure, and what do we mean when we say something is an algorithm? Like, why there is a distinction between them? And I think that the algorithm is just a data structure that shapes itself. Maybe that's the difference. And what we call a data structure is just a... So what we call a data structure is just a particular connection of the deterministic or non-deterministic finite automata. So it's just a subset of the language, I think. Maybe another distinction is that the data structures, they can, like, they exist beyond different grammars. So maybe that will be another distinction. So it's like a fundamental pattern that doesn't depend, or maybe that's could be the definition. Is like whenever you have something that exists on multiple different grammars, that is a data structure. Maybe that's the definition. It's just a more concrete representation of memory. Yeah. So I'll go back to this stuff. What could be the easiest thing that I can do here? I think assignment is already going to be hard, that's the problem. Maybe a string. Yeah. So the first thing that I try to parse. So let me think here. And token. So what does the token have? Another thing, like I'm just thinking about why not do I put the stuff that I'm gonna use on the graph already on the token? Because that will make it a lot easier, but I think that this might be problematic because what I want to do is just the main reason for using CPython directly or using the stuff that CPython uses to parse is that it's already based on something that is proven to work. So there's a lot less risk that I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes. And because I don't know the nature of the code I'm gonna parse, and I think that's just the nature of creating the parser. Like this is the challenge of it, is that you don't know, like there's an infinite amount of different inputs, and you have to create a structure in such a way that regardless of what happens, the grammar is consistent. So this is the challenging part. Like, and I think that the problem is if I put the stuff that I'm gonna use on the graphs instead of the token, then it's not gonna allow me to understand how the other one works. So like, how do I bridge the gap between the stuff that I'm trying to do and the way that normal compilers work. So I think I'm not gonna put it, but yeah. So one thing obviously will be the type. But there are other things on the other one that I forgot what they are. So what can be the types? This is the thing, it's just gonna go back to... So maybe what I can do is just go to the other project and then... I'm gonna figure out how to create the launch first. But what I'm gonna do is just go to the other project and get the grammar and try to understand from the grammar. Because that's the kind of the annoying part, and it is what he did there, a bunch of macros. Because you have to think about what are all the possible syntax of the language. So in Python it's gonna be different than the one that he has here. Like these cases here. What each symbol, which is the terminal symbol of the language, is the syntax. That's what the lexers are. This is another thing, is the enums. That's something else that I don't know how they do it on CPython. It's how to find the correct... I think it's based on the type of the object, but I don't remember really well. How does it figure out that based on the file inputs? Because I didn't get to that part. Let me see if I can find the way that he does unions here. Yeah, so it doesn't have a name, just... Should I copy the stuff? I think I'm just gonna delete the ones that I don't know here. But the problem is I have to know the syntax, to know the scope of the token, of all the types that it can be. I think that numbers he puts outside of the union, because there's different things in memory, maybe. Yeah, token number. And white space. Also, the type isn't linked. So I guess the way that enums work on C is that the best way I think is just replacing with a number. So every time you have an enum, it's just gonna like it allows you to write numbers with variables, because then it becomes easier to understand what each thing is. So it's just like if I have a token number here, this is gonna be 0, and the next one is gonna be 1. Let's say, for example. So it's just like flag variables should represent what each thing is. I don't remember how to. So it's just the comma. But so let me try to figure out how to run the debugger from this. First, let me see the file, like how to open the file. I'm gonna open the file here first. I'm gonna try to run cmake again to see if it creates a make file here. It's kind of weird that it's not creating a make file. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Remember, maybe it's a flag variable that I have to pass. Hmm. So let me search. I'll ask ChatGPT. And the first thing that I have to... So I'm gonna write down the question that I have as I build this to remember. So like the first question is, how do I know the types? I think I'm just gonna put on the same project. There's a there was another command. Maybe if I just try to run make, even though there isn't a make file. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, no targets. Hmm. Also wrote down so I don't forget, because I forgot last time how to do these commands. I now I have to remember where did I put this now. It was here. I see, make commands. I think on the other project I used that ninja thing, which is a builder, I think. Also I have to specify. Yeah, so maybe G and then Ninja. So it's complaining because I already had built and then it caches the configuration I think on the that file, so I have to delete. Not sure if it worked though. It's probably not gonna work. Oh, it does work. So usually, so there's a problem, but usually the way that you do this, it's probably because they did the configuration before, but you have to set up on the environment variables on the Windows, because that's how the command line knows what you're talking about. And it's gonna search for the path you have on the environment variables, and then there's gonna be an executable, and then from that executable is just gonna run whatever you have there. So I assume that at some point it did this for to make the other one work. Maybe it's one of these paths here. Let's make. Compiler range. Some. I guess I have to like create the. I'm gonna look on the other one, but I think I have to create the object like this, and then put the position, and then here it would be. Maybe this one has to come before as well. Hmm. So the next process doesn't have tokens. I guess it makes sense. Because the thing is, you're not gonna just one Lex process and then you're just gonna have a collection of tokens. So yeah, it makes sense. So I should probably remove there. I don't know why I thought about putting the token there. I guess it's because you have to define. Yeah, I'm not really sure. This is gonna be vector tokens. Trying to find the token struct. Let's just search for structs, easier. So position. It's gonna be the same thing. I think it's just call. No. Ah. Gotta get used to this. But why doesn't he have to do it? Well, obviously I'm doing something wrong there. It's saying it's incomplete. Doesn't make sense. Oh, it's because... Probably because of this. Here as well. I guess that one is fine, probably. So, like, how can I ask this? I don't understand why here he has to specify to declare the value inside, but on the position he doesn't. Position is incomplete time. Yeah, so here is also complaining about the thing. But when I had it like this, he was complaining that about something else. I think I'm gonna be right back. No, we'll be right back. Hmm. So it's not finding the. Not finding this file, I think. So I have to solve this stuff first. I want to see if I can make the make file first. Then if I can do that, I think next thing is gonna be to figure out the VS Code thing to run the file directly in the debug. Then I can continue, I think, trying to build this. Oh, that's the thing. What did I put? I didn't put if now. I don't see why it would be the if and def thing. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm using the same name. I'm pretty sure he uses the same name as well for the Lex process. Hmm. Or maybe I was thinking. But he has. Let me think. Maybe I'm confusing the two. He declares the Lex process with the same name on the main file, not the declaration file. Well, here is the same name, so. But here is not. Hmm. It has to be because it's two different files. So I guess I can test this. Just see if it works. And obviously it's gonna be bad if it works because... And this is the stuff that I think I had problems with. Using... Maybe I should ask ChatGPT. To explain. Or to help me understand what is the best way to set up the header files. This is the problem, is that... But I think I can declare only once as long as I'm importing like all the files into the other ones. But here, it's probably gonna complain about this one now. Yeah, now it works. So it created the executable, but it didn't create the make file. It's weird. So I guess on the other one, I remember like I had this problem as well. On the other one, I think I've used Ninja and then maybe I used something else. I do remember struggling with this stuff for some time. And I don't remember exactly what's like I did in the end. Because obviously if I run this, it doesn't have make. But I don't think it matters that much, but I want to figure out how to create the makefiles. Creating the makefiles I think is good for to make the code work on several different places. Like if I want to run on Linux, it's probably easier if I have the makefile. Oh, this is the one, I think. // build. But maybe it's the same thing. I do remember using some flag like that. So maybe that's what's missing. So first you have to build. So you run the other command with cmake. Then once you do that, you do this one on inside of the build directory. Maybe that's the one that I did with the G flag. It's really boring to figure this stuff out, but I think I have to spend time until like it becomes automatic to just do this stuff. Like people told me that it's probably the best thing to do in the beginning. And I think it makes sense. It's gonna help me. Like the biggest thing is that C is different than Python and JavaScript when it comes to debugging, because most of the bugs are gonna be segmentation faults. So I think figuring out these parts of the debugging process and building stuff is probably like really important, because it's gonna be easier in the future to solve the segmentation faults thing. But it is very annoying, to be honest. So obviously what I can do there is just delete the cache and then build again, but I'm not really sure if that's gonna... Maybe it's just the builder, but it could be that the other project I did the same thing and then I just build it again. I do remember going over something like this. I'm gonna try to delete and then run the same command. But I remember that I use... Yeah, I think it was exactly like this. I was trying to make it work, then it wasn't working, then I used this Ninja, and then I think I went back to something else, but then I left the Ninja file. if I remember, but I don't remember what I did after the ninja thing to make it work. Yeah, so or I just use another generator, could be that. Or it's the same thing. I think that the reason why I did the makefile is because of the way that he did the project. Because he the course is on, he uses Linux and he uses a makefile. He doesn't use a CMake. So maybe that's the reason. So I think it's just C. Maybe if I look at the makefile from this project. But the problem is I think I deleted the other one. Yeah. Because this one is already going to be the result of the compilation. Hmm. So based on this response, I think it really depends on what kind of project. So it's just gonna be one of those things that is a gradient, then there's a polarity, and the answer is usually gonna be in the middle, or like based on the context. I think it's just like everything else in reality. So yo, the problem is that I don't want Unix makefiles. But maybe this one works. I think this is probably the way that I did it on the other one. Yeah. So I think it is like this. It's interesting that now it's not complaining. Oh, maybe that's the reason why he's complaining on the other one. Or maybe... did I solve? I don't remember now. Maybe the other one was complaining because of the way that it was linking the header files. It could be the reason why. Now I don't remember because I did create the executable with the Ninja, so maybe I solved the error there, but I'm actually kind of confused. Like, at what moment was I getting this error here? I think it was when I was trying to run the Ninja thing. Linking C executables. So maybe this way is right. I think I'm just gonna... So I'm gonna write down this command. I didn't think it was this one because it says Unix, so I assume that is for Linux. But I'm not... Let's see if I try to run the thing. It works. So I think it works. It doesn't give any errors. So probably this is fine. It's probably something that was going on with the compilation there. So I think I'm just gonna save this command and use this one. I think every time that you like make a difference, you have to run the thing again, I think, to recompile everything. Yeah, I remember, I think you don't need to run. So the first time you need to run with the generator, because then it generates the cache. But then after that, I think you can just run the command. Like this. Yeah. And then you run the makefile, and the makefile is the one that compiles. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna continue and then like yeah. So now I think next thing is probably better to try to figure out how to use this thing. So you run here and then it's gonna give me an alert there, I think. So GDB is a debugger. So I'm not really sure obviously the difference between these two, but I think I'm gonna go with this one. And I think here it's asking me to select which C compiler I want to choose. I'm not really sure about the difference between this. I think it's the same file. And I think it's probably gonna complain. Also, it didn't complain. Interesting. So which one of these should I use? Actually, I don't know. Maybe the GCC thing there. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what's the difference between GCC and G++. I think that there is the fundamental differences is one is more for C++ and the other for C. But I'm not really sure. I think on the course uses GCC. So I think I'm gonna select this one. So it's probably gonna complain now. The other one it complains, so not sure what's going on. Maybe it worked. Interesting. So, yeah, but how do I do it here? Oh, so yeah, I have to let me put a breakpoint. See if it works. The other one isn't working. Not really sure why then. Also, it looks like it's working now. Interesting. So it's actually. So what I can do is just copy the. Probably create a launch folder there or a file. Oh, nice. Yeah, so this is actually much better. I was expecting that it would be really hard to create because it would fail. Okay, interesting. So it created. So on the document, I think on the error that I get on the other one, it says that you should use the. It's probably just because of the way that I built here. And because like I probably built the project in one way and then I selected another compiler. Let me ask what's the difference between. Unix is an operating system and blah blah blah. First, the type of make generator used with CMake, build system. Make files are a way to specify how to build a project or program. Tool that helps you in the generator. When you choose the Unix make file generator in CMake, you're instructing CMake to generate make files. Compatible with the GNU make utility. Including Linux, blah blah blah. Yeah, whatever. So let me try this one. Yeah, so this is the stuff that it warns, and then it says that I think there's a link to the documentation here at some point that says that you have to create the launch file inside of the .vs code. This launch.json and then put some configurations there. But I'm not really sure why it's working on the other one now. Pre-launch task. So it's saying that the task failed. You're active. So what I'm gonna do is just compare here because I'm curious. Compare this one with the other one. And so it seems like it's the same thing. So I'm not really sure why is the other one's not working. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I don't understand what's going on. But whatever. It also doesn't have the launch thing. Maybe it's because this one has the settings for some reason. I think it's possible that the .vs code came from the project already. Because this is the, like, I was studying on this project that was already from the course. And I was trying to change this one, so maybe that's what happens. So, like, he created the .vs code on the this thing. I think that's probably what happened. Let's see if I'm gonna delete this file and delete the other one and see what happens. Maybe I should just delete this whole thing. If it doesn't work, I'm just gonna move on and then I'm gonna... I think the next step is figure out how to read the file create the file object in the beginning, and then the functions. Yeah, create the structs of the functions. I'm gonna try to take one step at a time. No, still fucking up. Oh, I think I know the difference. Oh, let me. Because maybe I don't have anything defined on the or included on the other file that I ran. I mean, that's the problem. No, it does have. No, so whatever. Let me continue. So let me. Hey man, what's up? So I think the first thing that I need to create is a function. I should probably declare the function here, which is gonna be probably void. I have to remember how to declare functions. That is gonna take the or create the compiler. So let's compile. So I need one to create this one. And maybe this is another question. So should I create? I think I should probably create the Linux process inside of this one. The drivers provided by the GNU compiler collection are used for compiling source code written in different programming languages. The primary difference between them is the default language they are set up to compile. C is the compiler driver for the C programming language. By the default, when you use GCC, expect source code written in C and compiles it. So one thing that someone told me is that like C++ is inclusive of C. So like if you have code that's like the C++ compiler can compile code that is only written in C because it's like inclusive. So I'm not really sure. So it is like the stuff that I was saying, that main difference between them I think is just that G++ is for C++ and GCC is for C. So it makes me think that maybe you should choose G++, because then obviously it doesn't matter if I'm writing C or C++. I think that C++ is probably more, like there's probably more libraries and more things because I think more people code on C++. And there's also Like the V8 engine is on C++ as well, so maybe it would be better to do C++ and then write in C for now, and then incrementally incorporate C++. So it's just the... So why is it complaining? Or maybe I didn't put the declaration, but no, it puts... So I don't get it. Let's see on his project. So I have to call the function? No. Oh, so I have to specify the type that it returns. I think that's what's missing. Oh, but if it doesn't return anything, it's just white. Hmm. I don't think that the function is gonna receive... Oh, maybe it receives the file, but I wanna understand why it's complaining there that... It doesn't make sense. I think I'll be right back. Maybe just the... Put the brackets. No, okay. So yeah, I'll be right back. I'm going to take a break soon. You want to do Yoga Nidra? So let me... So why is this complaining? Why does type Y? Oh yeah. So I have to return the thing. So this is gonna be structs, compile, process. Or a compiler. No compile. Oh. I don't understand why you have to put the brackets here though. If sometimes it doesn't do it. Like here, it's not doing it. So it makes me think that there's something wrong. You only need the brackets if you're implementing the method. What do you mean by that? Not really sure if I understand. Like if I do like this, it complains that the definition is not found, but I'm trying to define the function. So oh, I'm mixing up the things. So the definition is the... It's because the function is not implemented anywhere. That's what's saying. I think I'm confusing declaration with definition. So that makes sense. Yeah. Because I thought he was saying that the... I thought it was saying that it was complaining that I don't have the declaration. But I'm trying to declare, so... So here, let me think. Yeah, so... Now, I think I have to create a pointer because I'm gonna allocate memory. And then I think calloc it assigns memory and then sets everything to 0 in the beginning, but I don't remember really well. I think it's like that. Yeah, I'm gonna see on the other project how to do this, because I forgot. I have to, yeah, and then this is gonna be process. Or is the other way around, so it's like this. Yeah. But I don't remember really well if it's like this. And then here, I should initialize every value with their thing. Which I don't remember. So I'm going to accept... Maybe before I even think about this, I should figure out how to read the file. So I guess this is the first decision that is not very clear. The way that I'm thinking about creating is just like create the file object here in the beginning, then I pass the file object, and then I create like on the... Yeah, I need the file name as well. So maybe I pass the file name and then I create a file object inside of the function. And then I have another. So I think it's just gonna be file, if I remember correctly from the other project. It's like file, input file, and then it's a pointer because you just want to point the value. I think it is like this. So if I remember correctly, he does a struct, and then inside of the struct he puts the file. So I have to think if that's... But I think it makes more sense to just do the... Maybe I'm wrong about this, obviously, not really sure. But it just seems easier to just create the file object directly here, because then it's easier to access later, I think. So I just pass the file name, which is gonna be... So here is probably... like this, and then here I pass input file. The question is whether or not... I'm thinking if it's worth it to... Like, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to... It's just more to learn in the beginning, I think. So like the whole point is just to do the beginning of the Lexer, and then to learn more about C and become better with pointers. But I'm not really sure if I'm gonna get to the point where I'm building the intermediate representation. Probably not. I think it probably makes more sense and it's more efficient for my time to figure out how to translate a grammar file into a parse tree. That makes a lot more sense to me. And then from the parse tree, try to derive the intermediate representation of the code. Because then I can just replace the different grammars and see the differences between them. So I think that makes a lot more sense. But it's probably better to start with it. So like this project, I'm probably gonna just get to the point. It's probably better to just get to the point where I get all the tokens and then I create a graph out of it to become better at C. So if that's the case, then I'm probably not gonna need the output file. In the beginning, yes. So I'm gonna leave it like this, but I'm not gonna create any value for the output, just use the input file. And then read the input file. So in this function, so this is, so it has to be a pointer here. I think is it like this that I do it? I forgot how to do this. Maybe it's like here. Because I have to return a pointer from the thing. This is something that's... it makes sense here, but it's kind of confusing as well. Like, it makes sense for me here because you're creating the space in memory and then you're creating a pointer to that space. But then the challenge is on the context of everything else. How does this work? So let me remember from the other one. I have to... I think this is the number of things you wanna... Like the number of space you want to allocate. So for example, if you put 10 here, it's gonna... It's kind of like an array where you allocate blocks of memory based on the size you pass here, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna remember on the other... See on the other project how you do it, it does it. So I'm gonna copy these functions as well already because it's actually not that hard either. So I'm gonna remove this one. Is it? So Scalloc 1, so yeah, I did remember correctly. File name, put file. So now I assign the values of the thing. Uh, just the beginning. I'm initializing everything in the beginning, and then I think I have to create another function inside of this one to create the. No, if I remember correctly, the way that he does it is by assigning to place in memory as well in the beginning. So he doesn't create the processes. Yeah, it's slightly confusing because then I have to remember. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do it like this here, and then I'm gonna look in his project to see. Remember how he does it. But I think pretty sure that's the way he does it. It's pretty much. Yeah, but then do I do a pointer? I think I don't need to because it's already part of the structs on the other one, but I'm not pretty sure. This is the problem. I don't remember how he does it. Until time struct faster. I'm just gonna look. Oh no, he calls this function. Maybe on the other struct. Because obviously those are all vectors. And I want to remember how he does the struct. So yeah, Lex process. Maybe on this one. Or just vectors. Also, he has the value already. So I think I do have to create the value. Creates this one and then passes this one inside of this one. So yeah, the way that I was thinking about doing is the opposite that he did here. So he creates the compile process first and then passes the compile process inside of the Lex process. I was thinking about, I think intuitively it makes more sense for me to have the compile process and then the Lex process inside of the compile process. Because the way that I imagine is that the compile process is more general because it's for the whole thing. And the Lex process is just one step of that thing. So it makes more sense to, in my mind, to incorporate the Lex process into the compile process, not the other way around. But he did it the other way here, so not really sure. I think I'm just gonna follow the way that I'm thinking. That makes more sense to me. And then if I make mistakes, I'm gonna learn. Hopefully, I'm gonna try to understand like why the way that I'm thinking is not the best. So I think what I'm gonna do is just create another function here. And this is another question: should I create? Because if I create the function here, if I call the function here, then I'm coupling the other function with this one, which is not very good, I think. So maybe I should do. I think that the way that he did there is better. So I just should change the order. So I create the Lex process. So here I'm gonna have to change again, and And here, I should create a pointer. It's gonna be the same thing. So for this, I have to think about what do I need on the Lax process. Obviously, the tokens. I think I'm just gonna. I'm not really sure how to reach this balance. It's kind of hard. Like of copying the stuff that he did, but trying to do as much as I can on my own. And the problem is that it's kind of like this kind of a paradox, because in order to build the tokens, I need to understand. So maybe I should just follow the tutorials there that I have. But in order to build the Lax tokens, I have to understand the syntax of the language, and then I'm gonna have to understand the grammar. So like I have to go from the end to do the beginning, if that makes sense. Also don't understand why it's complaining there. Oh, it's because it has to be a pointer. So let me think. I think I'm not gonna do. Or maybe it's a mistake though. Maybe the way that maybe the reason why he does it that way is because then it allows him to create the parser process only after. But I'm not really sure if it makes that much of a difference, because you can just create it and initialize everything to empty, I think. So yeah, he creates here and then passes here, and then later on he creates the parser process, I think, in here. But also, after studying the grammar, I think that's probably not the best way. Probably the best way is the way that they do it in CPython. You just define the grammar, and then from the grammar you generate the code. I think these are more for learning reasons. So the question is, do I do? Because then I have to create another function to create the parser, and then pass the parser, and then connect. So the question, maybe I should see on the struct on the other project what he puts on the parser. I don't even remember if it's he calls node, yeah. I'm gonna find another name because then it's easier for the graph. Actually, maybe I just do node because I already have the code there for the graph, and I call it graph node, so it doesn't matter that much. Yeah, I think that the statements are the rules of the grammar. That's how it works. And then if it's written on the grammar way, it's just gonna be the R symbol. You have a rule here, like run 1. Then the R symbol, rule 2. This is gonna be equal to a non-terminal string. Then you generate the abstract syntax tree based on the path from the non-terminal to the terminals based on the rules. And the rules are the statements, so it's probably like functions. Yeah, it's gonna be functions based on the rules. And then the yeah, I think that the string can either be a statement or it can be a terminal, which is gonna be the syntax. So this is probably the bottleneck. I think I have to. So I should probably just set up the beginning of this, and then when it gets time to parse the code, then I think it doesn't make sense for me to, like, I don't see the point of just creating something that is gonna, like, an if else statement that is gonna get strings or numbers or things like that, because I think it makes a lot more, is a lot more effective to just look at the grammar. Hey man, what's up? Bunch of people. Sounds so. So I'm gonna remove parser from here. I'm not gonna do the parser. I'm just gonna do the initial thing. Then when it gets to the point to parse, I'm gonna study the other project actually. And I think I'm just gonna... I'm gonna go with the Python version because it's probably simpler in the beginning. And I'm gonna try to figure out how to, from the grammar, create the parse tree. And it's probably more effective. This stuff here. And I wanna understand more how the grammar works. Like how do the decisions for the grammar, like the statements and the syntax. So yeah. So here it has to be a pointer, I think. I just delete this. Okay. And then process inputs file is just equal to the file. Oh, I think that's pretty much it. So what else now? So now I think I have to create the loop. So I create a function like this, and then I pass the... Yeah, this is the thing. I think I have to pass the process. And then I create... It's gonna be on the compiler, so I'm just gonna... I think I don't need to return anything. I'm just gonna copy this stuff. Or maybe it should return an int to indicate whether or not... I think I'm gonna return an int. Because then I can indicate whether or not the process worked or not. Yeah. So the way that he does it is by reading one character at a time, and then he calls a bunch of functions. Or depending on which kind of character it is, he calls it... Like, this is the this is the part that is kind of a paradox. So I think that for now it's probably better. Like, the thing is that I want to build enough so I get some practice using pointers and the references, but I think it's probably not gonna be... Because at this point, like, I can create something that is simple and that is gonna like work to parse, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I don't see the points. So I think I have two options. One is to go back to this and try to figure out what I was doing wrong here. I think I understand already what I was doing wrong. So maybe I can try to debug this thing. Or maybe I can try to... but if I copy, I'm gonna have to copy everything else, and then it's gonna be really annoying. So I think one option would be to try to copy, try to figure out if I can solve this thing here. So like the thing that I think I was doing wrong here, I don't know 100% of the details, but the way that he does it is, and it's kind of weird to me, is that he calls this function and then he loops over the tokens here, and this is the function above, and he's gonna read the character for the file. I think that he puts the file inside of the process as well. That's inside of the compiler that is inside of the process. One thing that I didn't like that much here is that he uses a global struct lax process, which is this one. And then based on the global, which is from this file, he passes the information, I think. Yeah, so this is the global one. And so he passes the one that is created on the main function to that one. Like this one creates this one, passes through this. And then here he copies the one that he created outside to the global one that he declares here. And I don't understand really well why he does that. And that's one thing. And then he uses the... obviously it's because of something in memory, and that's what I'm trying to get better at, but I don't really understand very well like why does he do it like this. Because the thing is, it could be just one of the... it could be just his preference in the style on the design. That's the part that is challenging. It's like it's hard to figure out if it's a flaw in my thinking or if it's just a difference in designs, that's in the way that we would approach the problem. The other thing that I realized is that, like when I was thinking a while back how to create the parser, like the first thing that I thought about was by using regex, and I was wondering like why can't I just use regex to parse everything? And after studying this stuff about grammar, I think it's more clear to me now. It's like regex is like a simplified version of a parser because it doesn't have enough nuance to build sentences. So regex is, I think, good enough to build the syntax, but you can't really build sentences only using regex. I'm not really sure 100% why, but I think that's the case. So, yeah, I forgot why I was saying this. Oh yeah, it's because of the way that he parses here. So, like he initializes everything and then he calls this function outside, and then he reads one character at a time. The speak C is a function declared inside of the... I think it's like one from... it comes from C already, but he creates a struct called functions, and then he creates other... like he maps the functions inside of one struct to these C functions. Yeah, inside of this lax process function, picture, which is I don't remember really well. I think it's on this file or this one. Yeah, here. So the picture is just mapping to this function here, which is this one, which uses C functions to read the file, which is this getC and ungetC. I think ungetC puts the... like it doesn't move the pointer one character. It just checks to see which character it is now. So when you use getC, it moves the pointer of the file to the next character. I think ungetC puts the character back, I think. So it just allows you to pick. And this one moves the pointer and doesn't move back. So, and then he changes the value on the compiler struct. But the point is that the way he does it is by reading one character and then calling the functions based on the character. And then each function, he has like logic that is going to determine what happens. So this is one of the things that I was thinking about regex, is because, and I'm not really sure what's the answer to this, because like you could, I think that I saw this as well when I was studying grammars. I think different types of parsers have different types of logic on this. So there is a parser called, a technique called LL1, I think. And that means that it's just one look ahead. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So yeah, this is the stuff, like I think it makes more sense to study like how the fundamental logic of the other parsers that are already more established work. So I can understand why this decision to read one character at a time or more characters. And I think it has to do with the ambiguity of the grammar, which is just the structure of rules. So if you have a grammar that only accepts one kind of rule, like PEG parsers, which is it just accepts the first rule that is valid, that's not ambiguous, because it is always have only one choice that is possible from that snap. So like if you imagine like you have a starting string here, which is going to be a non-terminal string, which is a sentence, and that sentence is going to become something else based on the rules of the grammar. So I have like string 1, which is one possible rule, which can either be a statement or another statement, which would be a non-terminal, or a terminal, which would be a syntax of the language. Then you have string 2 and string 3. I think a deterministic parser always selects the first one, which would be a PEG parser, which is not ambiguous, because obviously you're always going to have one possible choice based on initial condition. But then if you have ambiguous grammar, you can take any of the choices, and then it makes the thing ambiguous, because one sentence can mean several different things. And this is obviously directly correlated with the amount of characters you're going to reach each time, because I think the amount of characters you read defines how often the rules interact with the input of the string. And then I think most of the parsers also use like a push-down automata, which is just a fancy way to say they use a stack to push characters to analyze them. So, which is very similar to the way that he's doing here. Like he gets this would be like putting on the stack the character. So you get the character from the file, then you analyze the character, but then he calls the function based on this one character, these other functions. So I assume that this would be the one look ahead way of building a parser. And then there are other ways, and then probably there's trade-offs between them, because that's how everything works. So I think usually the optimization is going to be around this complexity of the polarity, because that's how things always work. So depending on the nature of the thing you're trying to do, you're going to deviate for one side or the other of the polarity, which is going to be the context of the situation, which is going to define the memory model. So I think that it's counterproductive to just spend a bunch of time thinking about this nuance, because it's just like simple things that is not interesting to, it's just annoying things to write, and that I can get code from other people that already done it. So it's much more interesting to think about these nuances about the rules of the grammar and the syntax, because I think that's what's fundamental. So this is kind of but at the same time, I want to learn how to become better with the pointers. But I think if I try to make it more complex, I'm just going to waste a bunch of time, like writing this rules here, which is like just numeric case, which is going to be a basic matching on the character. So I think probably the best thing to do is just study this one. Or I can try to spend some time now trying to figure out why the thing that I was doing. So like the way that he does it is by calling these functions, and then on these functions he's gonna do a loop that is gonna be based on the condition. That's so for example, he encounters the initial character, and then until some condition is not met, he keeps looping inside of these functions. So he finalizes the token. So for example, here he is processing the include, and then I think these are the characters for the sender files. And then based on these functions, he once the token is finalized, the Lex token is finalized, then he calls this stuff. And then here's the main difference of the way that he does and the way that I was doing, is that he creates another struct token here as he passes through this function, and then he has a global, another global token, and then he passes the value of this thing that he just created to this one. But I think the problem, the reason why it's not straightforward for me to do it this way is because I'm getting the values from the token. So this is the problem here. But I think because the thing is, like, if I do it the same way that he did here, then it forces me to put another call on inside of each one of these functions. Because like what I want to do is just build a node based on the data of the token. But if I have to create a new token, just so I can pass to the function that I have there, which is, let's see if I can find again, which is this function here, or this one, create node from token. Yeah, this one. So what I'm doing is just creating this function. I created this function, then I was trying to pass the token inside of this because it's just easier. So like inside of this one, I copy the data. I was trying to copy the data from the token to the node struct that I have, and then append the node struct to the vector that I created to hold them. So pretty much just following the same logic that he did. But this is the challenge here, is that because of the way he does it, this token here is going to be, I believe is going to be the global one each time. And I don't understand exactly why he does that. So like he's creating another struct, like struct token from 0. Then he's copying that struct token to the global one, and then he's appending the global one to the vector. So what I don't understand is how doesn't this create a bunch of different pointers to the same thing if you're always using the same global reference. But as far as I understand right now, I think what's happening is that it's not that he's creating a bunch of pointers to the same thing. He's using the global struct as a placeholder to hold the value of the token, and then the pointer moves based on the functions. I think that's the difference. But then the question is, like, because the nodes that I'm creating depend on each token, what is the best way to, because I don't know the values, I think that's the biggest problem. Like, I don't know what this token is going to be, so I can't create the token from scratch to pass. So for example, instead of passing the token here, I could do the same thing that he's doing there, and I could do stroke token and then just pass the values. But then this is the problem, because I don't know which what the values will be, because obviously it's going to be different for each token, and that's the whole point. So one thing obviously would be to just change all of the functions here one by one. And then at the moment that he creates the token with the type, I create a node, or I create another token and pass to this function to create a node. But then the issue is, I pretty much I would do the same logic that he does. Then I would create another global node. But the thing is that I don't understand why. So this is the stuff that I wanted to... I think if I do it this way that I was talking about, it would work. So pretty much just copy what he did. Like instead of creating the token here, or I do create the token here, but I create another one that is global, the same way that he did. It will be a temporary node. And then on each one of these functions, I go and I create another token from scratch, and based on the whatever type the token is going to be, like I do this. So before it does this call here, I would do the same thing, like create node from token. But then this is the problem, because then I would have to pass the... maybe actually not. If I do exactly the way that he did, then it probably works. So I would just copy the value here, and then I would get the data from this token instead of the one that they have on the function there. And then I would append, I would copy this one the same way that he did here. So I would probably change this function so it accepts the node, and then I would pass the node, and then I would change this function here so that I also copy. So I would have a temporary node, and then I will copy the the node that I pass here, that I put here, it would be the same, I think. And then I would return. So this is the problem. I will have to change the way that I'm returning here, which would mean that I would have to change the struct and like change everything else. So this is the thing that was annoying me, because I was thinking like there must be an easier way to do this, like, or like, why is the way that I'm trying to do is not the best? And I think it's because of the memory, but I don't understand why using this global variable works. So I think I'm gonna step over this again, and I'm gonna try to think about the memory, what's happening, to see if I clarify in my mind, like what is the reason to create the global. Yeah, I think if I talk about it more and I walk through, I'm gonna clarify that. And then once I have that more clear, because the biggest thing is just that I think the way that I just talked about it would work, but it would be just annoying, and it's probably better to just focus on the other stuff, the grammar, because the thing that I'm trying to do is probably not going to be related to this C compiler. I was using this one more as a beginning to try to do something to show. But now I think I'm going to do other stuff, so I think it's just a waste of time to spend a bunch of time changing all these functions, changing the header files and passing a bunch of things. So I think like the important thing is just to clarify this stuff here with memory. And once I clarify that, I think it's gonna be clear in my mind, the confusion that I have. And then I don't need to spend a bunch of time creating other stuff, because it's becoming more and more clear how to use the pointers and how everything works. And then after I do that, then I think it's probably better to start studying this one and then trying to create the... I want to get a grammar file and then create the parse tree from the grammar file, and then understand what makes the grammar. Then once I have that, then I can try like just replacing the language, just replacing the grammar with another one, using the same project and seeing if I can create another parse tree. I think that's probably the most effective thing to do. So this is what I'm gonna do after. I'm gonna take a break now. I'm gonna go get something to... I have a... I'm gonna do Yoga Nidra, and after I do that, I'm just gonna walk through this again, and after I clarify this, then I'm gonna start studying this other stuff here. So I'm gonna walk through this thing. I'll be right back. So what I'm gonna do is use SkyDraw. I think I clarify in my mind the main point of confusion that I have. So I'm gonna use SkyDraw to make it clear, and then I think I'm gonna try to find a place, maybe a Discord or something like that, or maybe just ask ChatGPT or think about it to clarify. Because I think the main question that I have is how does the global variable change how does memcopy change the value of the global variable, for example? It's kind of hard to explain because he's always using the same global variable to push values into the vector, to push pointers into the vector. So how come doesn't all the pointers point to all the pointers are the same? So no, I'm gonna draw here what I'm trying to say. I think I'm gonna spend another 1 hour and a half. Then I'll figure out substring. So just use SkyDraw. I'm gonna start from scratch here. Maybe here. Or here. So let's say this is the vector. Each one of these is gonna be a token. Nice, got the point. The size of the vector is the struct token. Then he has the global, which I think is a pointer. So it doesn't initialize as a pointer. Also gonna ask ChatGPT what is the like the purpose of the static in from what I remember is I remember on Python just the static method, and it's used to declare a function that is not part of the class, but you wanna declare the function inside of the class because you want people to understand that the function is supposed to be like based on the class, but it doesn't use self, so it doesn't use this instance of the self. That's when the function is static. I think other programming languages is kind of the similar way, but here in this context, I'm not really sure what it means to be static because it's a variable inside of the file. But so I think here it doesn't, yeah. So it doesn't doesn't declare as a pointer, but in the function I think it probably does. Yeah. So as far as I know, in C there isn't a difference between this asterisk or this star symbol and the ampersand. They are both pointers, but in C++, one is a reference, the other is a pointer. A reference is just the address in memory for the thing. It's not the value itself, it's the address that the value has. And the pointer is like pointing to the whatever you assign. So there's this slight difference, but as far as I know in C, they are both pointers. But I need to maybe I'll ask ChatGPT this now. So yeah, whatever. It has this global variable and then uses. I also have to ask how does exactly memcopy works. So it's copying the token that it creates. So it creates a new one. I'm gonna find a place that it declares the thing. Okay, as an example. Yeah, so it has this one. So it's like initializing one from scratch. And then it copies this one into this one. Right. And then on the other function, which is the main loop, it's gonna, yeah, I think it's a pointer, or yeah, it's the % to the temp token that is gonna return from the token create function, and then that ultimately is gonna be the token that it pushes here. But the question that I have is that like each time it's copying a new one of this into here, but it's always pushing this one, the global variable, to the struct. So how come it doesn't like this happen here? I don't understand how this works. But I guess what it's doing is different actually. Because it's not copying the value, it's copying the pointer. But it's still kind of. Yeah, so I think I clarify right now. So like the way that I was thinking is that this is gonna happen is just pushing the value to temp token and then it's creating a bunch of pointers to the thing. I think that's the point of the confusion that I have. But what is actually happening is that it's copying the pointer to the temp token. So temporarily the value of which is not really a value, is going to be a pointer to the token that it created. So it is actually using this thing as a placeholder to push this value inside of this thing here. And then once it uses memcopy again, it just replaces the pointer of this one, but it doesn't break this one. I think this is the key here, but I don't understand really well why that happened. But I'm pretty sure that this is what's happening. That's why I was confused. So yeah, each iteration is breaking this part here, but it doesn't break the connection that it made when it pushed to the thing. I think I understand now. That's what's happening. So when it calls memcopy, I'm trying to think if there's an easier way this is gonna be better to draw this to explain. But let me see. So it's passing the pointer to this thing. I think I understand. I think it does pass. Yeah, it passes as a pointer. That's the thing. So this is the pointer to this value here. And this pointer gets copied to the pointer of this value, which is a global variable. But what does that mean? So like, does it mean that the pointer is pointer to here and then this other pointer is pointer to the global? Or does it mean that like this one? I don't understand really well what that means. So I guess I need to clarify memcopy. But I think what is happening is that like this creates a pointer to the value of the global variable, and then it copies the pointer to the other value into this pointer. So it makes the global variable point to the value that he creates here. So temp token starts pointing to this value. And then, so like it's just using this variable as a way to redirect the pointers, I think. so that it pushes the token inside of the vector. Then like this other stuff here is just some operation to put extra stuff on the token. So for example, when you have functions, you have to create a buffer. Then inside of the buffer, you put whatever is inside of the parentheses. So like when you create a token, actually, you create the buffer to hold whatever is going to be on the parentheses. And then the process of putting whatever is on the parentheses comes on the parser, I think. Because the parser is the thing that's going to create the meaning. So in the token process, you just create the buffers, and they are going to be a part of that specific token. And then once it gets time to parse, then you're going to use the buffers to write the information when you build the expressions. That's what's happening. So this stuff like can be ignored. I think the part is that it returns the pointer to the, which is going to be pointing to this value here, I think. It's just copying the pointer. I think that's what's happening. And then the result of this is going to be the one that is on the main loop there. So I think this is the biggest thing. Because I was, in my mind, I was assuming that it's just going to create... It's just going to create several different pointers using the same thing. And then the question that I have is like, how doesn't it override the value each time on the iteration of the loop, since it's always using the same pointer? But I think what's actually happening is that it's just using that as a placeholder to redirect the value. So I have to think about a way to, because I want to clarify this, I have to think about a way that I can make a clear question about it. So like that value of the create token function is going to be the one that gets returned by this function, which is this one. And this one is the one that is pushed to the vector, the token back. So this one I think is like the same as replacing. Yeah. So I think here is the key, maybe. No, but here it doesn't have the... Like it's not creating a pointer here. But maybe it's because it's reassigning, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think it's gonna be... So I think because it has this thing here, that dereferences the pointer and gets the actual value. So that's what's happening, I think. So like the function returns this will be the same as replacing with temp token at the end there, which is the global variable. No, but maybe not. Maybe it doesn't dereference, it's just the pointer. But because the pointer is the pointer from the other token, but I'm still not very, like I'm not 100% sure clear. Because the question is like, if this is the temp token there that it returns, then how come on the next iteration of the loop is not gonna... I guess it doesn't override because it's always creating a new pointer based on the new value, which is gonna be a new struct. So even though, so what's happening is that in the first iteration, it's just redirecting the pointer. What's the best way? So like the temp. So like this is a pointer to a place, and then this is a pointer to the temp token is going to be the pointer to the value. This is a pointer to here, and this is a pointer to... Let's say. But then it's copying. So I think what it's doing when it's copying is redirecting this pointer to here. Yeah, I think that's what it's doing. So on the mem copy function, you just reassigns the pointer to this one because it's copying the pointer from this one, which is pointing to this one. So it's like copying the arrow here from one to the other. And then when it pushes to the vector, I think it just is pushing the pointer, like this pointer here. And then because on the next iteration it creates a new value of this, it just does the same thing again. So the way that I was thinking is that like this is gonna be here next time. And then once it copies again, it's just gonna move the same one to the next value. So let's move this one to this. And then you're gonna lose the value of the first one because you're using the same global variable. That's how I was thinking. But I think it's more likely that what's actually happening is that because this is the pointer to here, and like when it pushes the I'm not 100% sure, but I think it pushes the pointer to this value. So yeah, it will be the other way around, right? So when it pushes to the vector, and then on the next iteration it just does the same thing but with a different one. Like it creates a new value, and then like, so this would be like a placeholder. It's always passing the pointer. And then based on the pointer, it just pushes. And the reason why it does that is because it doesn't want to lose the value of the token in the first iteration. And the way that I was doing doesn't work because I'm using the same, like, I'm not using the global variable here in this case. So I would like, I'm doing what I thought that he was doing with this code because I'm not creating a global variable and not copying the value to the pointer. So what I'm doing is just creating a variable. I create the pointer of the node, and then I push the node directly, which would be like creating this pointer here. And then pushing directly through here to here. But then the problem is on the next iteration, I'm just moving the same pointer, I think. Because I'm not using the global variable to, I'm not using the global variable, and I'm not creating an extra value to pass to the vector. So I'm passing the same value. So I pass here, so the next iteration it doesn't have the value anymore because it's inside of the token already. So like, maybe not the value, but the pointer. So when it tries to update the values of the node with the token, it fucks up because the pointer is already on the vector. I think that's what's happening. Yeah, so I am getting the pointer to the node. And then I'm passing this pointer to the vector. So it is what I was saying, I think. So the pointer is the arrow. I'm trying to see if I can represent this in a way that's easy to understand. So what I'm doing, I think, is creating this pointer, and then when I push this pointer here to here. And then I use the same variable to reassign. So the problem is here, because I'm using the same variable, so I think what it's gonna try to do is use the same pointer for before. But then how does that work? Why does the other one? I think the other one works obviously because it has the global variable, so it's just gonna replace the same value. But this one, I think it's because it's trying to create another pointer in the same place in memory. That's the problem. So it tries to create another one from here because I'm using the same variable. And in order to avoid that, that's why he uses the global variable as a placeholder. And you kind of have to create a new value yourself. And I think that the reason why I am doing this way is because I'm used to do it in Python. So I imagine that under the hood, what Python does is create another value for you, I think, in memory. So you can afford to do that, but maybe it's not the best. It just creates a copy like under the hood for you of the whatever element you have there, and then it uses that copy instead of the original one. But in C, it uses the original one automatically, and then you get a segmentation fault. Because I'm trying to use the same one from the previous loop again, but by the time that I try to use it, the value is not there anymore because it's inside of the struct. I think that's pretty sure that's what's happening. And the reason why it doesn't happen on the other one is because it uses a global variable. So the key thing to understand is this passage of pointers here. So I have to clarify the mem copy. Just remember, right? I want to understand what exactly is happening. Because it has two different pointers, so it's copying one pointer to the other, so I imagine it's like redirecting the pointer of the temp token to the... But I don't understand if it is redirecting to the arrow, like the pointer of the other one, or if it's redirecting to the value. That's what I'm trying to clarify. It's like this one is equivalent to this one, so it's a pointer to the value here, which is the global variable, and this one is a pointer to the value, which is this value here that gets created based on this syntax here. This is just creating a token with these values here. And then the reason why he does it like this is because like it's a different declaration that you can do in C, and then you don't have to specify the name, I think. So it just creates this on the spot because it's easier to pass through the function. So it's just creating a pointer to this value here. You should write the value. And then on the mem copy, it's kind of confusing. Because either it means that this pointer is going to be pointing to this, which I don't think is the case. Or I think it means that the temp token points to the value. So it's just like replacing this one with this one. This pointer with this one. So it just makes the temp token point to the value of that was created here. And then when I think it pushes to the vector, what happens is that it's pushing the pointer. So it's pushing this pointer to the vector and not the global variable. I think that's what that was the point of my confusion. So when it does that, it loses the reference in the global variable, but it doesn't matter because on the next iteration it's just going to create another value, and then it's just going to copy the pointer again. So because it's not losing the value itself, it's just losing the pointer that it created. So it's just using like as a placeholder to create pointers inside of the vector with the values. So I think I get it. It's pretty clear to me now. So the main fundamental difference is the stuff about the way that I was... And the reason why I can reassign the value is because it still has the value of the global variable. It doesn't matter anyway because it's gonna create the pointer. So it's always gonna be the token is always gonna be the pointer to the value that it gets created on token create because of the mem copy there. But the reason why I think it doesn't break is because it always creates a new value on each iteration, and I was trying to use the same value. So like the way that I was trying to do is by creating the node from the token. So let me do the way that I was trying to do to see the difference. Yeah, so it's the same thing. I have a pointer, but I'm not updating the pointer. So let me look at this first. Copies the entire context of token object structs to the temp token object. Copies the contents. Oh, so it is copying the value to the temp token. So the question is, how doesn't it lose when it pushes to the vector? So what is happening is just copying the value according to GPT. So because both of them are but then I'm not really sure why doesn't it, because it is the thing that I was thinking about. So I have two different pointers, and then instead of making this one point to here, starts pointing to here. And then you push there. So I guess it's kind of the same thing. So probably the reason why it doesn't matter that it gets rewritten on the other one is because you're just moving the pointers. So it probably appends this to here, and then on the next iteration it's just gonna erase the pointer and point to the new value, and then you're just gonna append again. But the question is then, why does the other way doesn't work? I think because the other way doesn't work just because it's the same value each time. I'm not creating a new value each iteration. That doesn't make sense. It has to be, like, the problem has to be on the assignment, I think. And that's the difference of the memory. I think it's because I'm using the same variable, so it's reassigning the same variable. That's the thing. And this is gonna be the global variable, and mine is not the global variable. But like, still I don't understand really well. Maybe that's not the problem. Maybe the problem is just that there's something going on when I copy the token. The values of the token to the node. Because then they get erased, and then these values here are supposed to be pointing to them. Yeah, now I'm not really sure about it. So how can I clarify this? So maybe that's just but I don't know. It wouldn't make sense in my mind anyway, because even if it is the scope, if I can move the node to the global scope and then it would work, that still doesn't make a lot of sense in my mind, because the question is, why doesn't it override the value? That's the question that I have. It's like in the next iteration, if it is pushing the pointer to the value, so it doesn't push the value to the vector, it pushes the pointer to the temp token, which is a global variable. Then the next iteration is gonna replace that pointer with the new value. So why doesn't the new value override the old one? That's the question that I have. But maybe these answers are not correct as well. I should keep that in mind. There's a chance that it isn't correct. So I need to figure out a way to ask these questions. Or to simplify the question, or to generalize so I don't have to explain the whole context. So I can figure out like what is the best way to think about this. I remember seeing this thing as well, so I'm gonna search for this stuff. Dangling pointers. Oh, that's the thing. So it does remain unchanged. But I don't understand why though. Wasn't it pushing the pointer, not the value? to the vector. Vector holds a separate copy of the data that was originally and was pushed into the vector. So I guess this is the main point of confusion. It's because I don't... So I think the question is what happens when you push a value to... Because like, and this is the confusing part about C, is that I'm never really sure if it's pushing the value or the pointer because of the way that it is done there with the mem copy. So this is another additional thing. But the main point of confusion is what happens with the value that was pushed through the vector after you reassign. I think that's the main thing. And then obviously I can't clarify yet why the other one, the way that I was doing, doesn't work. I kind of, it's becoming more clear, so I kind of know like, intuitively why, but not precisely. So here, according to GPT, because it's both of them are pointers, is actually copying the value. I don't understand why. And then it copies the value, and then, but this is the thing, is because it's returning a pointer, so it doesn't make sense to me. But maybe it copies the value into the temp token, but then it returns the pointer to that value. And then when you push, it's pushing the... But it should be... I guess it's because of the... When you pass stuff into the function. And so this is another thing, is when you declare the value, I think it's another point of confusion. Because here I'm assuming that it's pushing the pointer. Just passing by reference, not passing by value. Because of the way that is declared here. But then here it doesn't have this thing, but I assume that is still a pointer because of the types there. So I think it makes sense that it's a pointer. So here is passing by pointer, so it should be passing the pointer to the global variable. Here. And then it pushes the pointer to, in my mind, it pushes the pointer into the vector. But if it pushes the pointer, then when it copies again, in my mind, it's supposed to override the pointer with the new one, and then that would fuck up the value. But ChatGPT is saying that it just copies the value, it copies the pointer. But this is the thing, it doesn't make sense, because if it is a pointer, then it should point to the global variable, the value of the global variable, and then when it copies again, it should override the value. Because if it's copying the pointer on the vector, it still doesn't matter, because the value where that the pointer is pointing to is going to change on the next iteration. So, what is the question exactly? So I think one of the fundamental things is the mem copy. Then, when pushing a pointer through a vector, what happens? The problem is that this is not a standard vector, it's the vector that he created. So this is another additional thing. And I looked into this function already, but it's kind of hard to understand because of the pointers again. So I think it's just getting the pointer to the vector. based on the index here, the right index. Then copies the pointer to the elements into this thing here, based on the size of the vector. Then increases the index and the count of elements. And then if it reached the end of the vector, it's gonna call this function to resize the vector. But I don't understand at what point is pushing the elements. It has to be here. So I remember looking into this, kind of annoying. This is the data of the vector, and here I think this is based on whatever index is at right now, then times the size of the whatever element you initialize the vector with. So you're just getting the data. The pointer to the so it's pointing it's creating a pointer to the place in the vector that is gonna put the element, and then it copies the value that you pass there to that place. That's what's happening. They're just copying the element to this pointer here. So I do think now, based on this one, I think it makes sense what GPT said, because here you have two different pointers, but it wouldn't make sense to copy the pointer into the thing. It would make more sense that it's copying the value. So I think when you have two different pointers and you're using memcopy, you are actually copying the value. So it's copying the value of the element into the place that the pointer is pointing to, which would be the index of the new element. I think that's what's happening. So in the other one makes sense that is the same thing is happening. So it's copying the value of the token that it just created to the value of the temp global or temp token. It's copying the value of this to the value here. It's copying the value to where this thing is pointing at, and then it's returning the pointer to the value. So it's returning the pointer to the global, to the temp token, which is the global variable. And then it pushes that. So I think the main point of confusion was the thing about the vector. So when it pushes to the vector, it's copying the value because of the function there. That makes sense. So when it pushes, it's just copying again here. So it's like creating a clone inside of the vector. And that's why when you reassigns the value in the next iteration, it doesn't break, because the value is already on the copy of the value is already on the vector, and it shoots separate things. I think I get it now. So the question is, why the way that I was doing doesn't make sense? Obviously, it's because I'm not creating a new one and doing the copy. But why does that fuck up? So let me try to walk through. What's going on? So I'm creating the nodes. I'm creating a pointer to the place in memory, this klock here, and returning that. And then I push that, which should copy the value. So you should copy this place in memory into the vector. Yeah, but then this is the thing. It's like, because if it is copying, then why would it matter if I'm reassigning the value? Yeah, I don't understand. So I think I get the other one, like the way he did it, but I still don't understand why the way that I did it doesn't work. So maybe something else that is wrong as well could be the case, but so the only thing that would make sense is because of like I'm using the two different structs, so this might be the reason. That's the only thing that I can think of. Because I am creating a new value in memory each time for each node, and then I'm copying that value to the vector. So I'm creating a pointer to the place in memory, and then I'm copying the place in memory into the vector each time. So when I reassign, the main difference is that he's using memcopy to copy the new token into the global variable, and I'm not doing that. I'm just reassigning with a new value in memory. So what would be the question? I think I have to spend some time thinking about this to understand. Like, I'm not gonna understand it now. Maybe I can come up with the question that is gonna help me clarify. So, but I think that's the fundamental difference. I'm reassigning the value based on new place, and he's creating a new value. I think we're both creating a new value in memory. No, I'm creating a new value in memory using kloc. He's creating a new value using the other declaration. But it's probably relatively similar. And we're both creating pointers to that value. The main difference is that he creates the global variable. What do I do? So maybe it's a problem of scope. I think it's a problem with scope, because when I reassign the value, it doesn't exist anymore. So I think that's the problem. So I'm trying to reassign a value that doesn't exist. Like, is this thing here that is the problem? I think I understand now. Because I'm using the same one, so yeah. I think what got me confused is that I thought the problem is inside of the function, but now I think it's very likely the problem is this one. Because I'm pushing the node and then I don't have it anymore. But that wouldn't make sense, I think. I'm not really sure. I'm pushing the pointer. I'm reassigning the pointer. That's the thing. When I reassign here. But isn't, like, the only difference is that he's reassigning to a global variable and then reassigning to a local variable. So I don't get it. I'm gonna spend maybe I should stop here. Just try to clarify this. 'Cause I think I'm not gonna be able to fully figure out right now. I think it's becoming more clear, but it's still kind of. The main thing is that I don't get why, like, the reassign, because the thing is, it could be also the, like, because I'm using kloc and he's just creating another struct. So it could be that when I do this function here, is a different way because of the way that Klock works. Or it could be also because I'm copying the values of the other token. This could be the reason as well. So when I pass the token, but it should, yeah. So maybe instead of directly, but I'm not really sure if using memcopy to copy the values makes sense. So instead of, because this is supposed to dereference, I think, the value on the struct, and then make it equal to the other value. So, but it could be, this could be the problem. Because maybe this value, yeah, but it should be copying the value, I think, not the pointer to the value. And I think both of them are creating a new pointer each time, each iteration. So, but the only difference is that one uses the global variable and I use the local one here. No, he's using two variables. Yeah, he's using the global one to assign to this one. I'm using just this one. So I think maybe it's because of that. Because each iteration he's renewing the value of the global one and using this one to reassign. And I'm reassigning this one directly. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna spend more time thinking about this. Probably watch some videos. The biggest challenge is that I'm not like, even if I come up with a conclusion, I'm not gonna know for sure if that's the case unless I spend the time. Like, the thing is, I can spend the time to solve this as well, but I'm pretty sure I could find a way to solve it. But like the main concern I have is the fundamental, like, it's the way of thinking about it that I wanna fix. So I'm probably gonna watch videos and then I'm going to use ChatGPT as well to try to see. I'm gonna copy these functions there and then spend more time thinking about it, trying to see if I can clarify this. But I think I'm making progress. I think I'm ready. Like, what I said about the token there, I think is correct. This one, like the way that it works, is just the one that I did it. I'm not 100% sure. Like, what is the fundamental difference between the way that I was approaching and the way that he approached? And I want to correct or like improve the way that I'm thinking about this. So after I do this, after I clarify this, then I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna study this project next, or I might go back to finishing the Chrome extension. That I'm not really sure if I'm gonna continue that. Yeah, this is next step. So I'm probably gonna, after clarifying this, study this thing or finish the Chrome extension. And I don't think I'm gonna finish the other project, this one. I'm just gonna focus more on how can I convert a grammar file into a parse tree. I wanna understand how that works more, because I think it's like more ROI for my time than trying to build the thing here. So yeah, not sure when I'm gonna come back, but probably gonna do this stuff now.